Who is the tight end to own in Pittsburgh in 2017? Who is the running back to own in New York next season? And who is going to be the first pick of the first 2017 draft for the Fantasy Football Players Championship? Plus, $38,000 FFPC winner Chris Puchowicz talks about his two top 5 teams in the playoff challenge and how he was able to win 4 Football Guys Players Championship leagues in 2016 as well. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour starts now.
Bunches and bunches, punches is thrown into your frontlets. Oodles and noodles, bang bullets that suck as noodles. Last album voodoo, prove that we fucking brutal. I'm talking crazy, half past the clock is cuckoo. You rappers you, baby, just make you boo-boo. I'm talking brutal, master.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. with your hosts, Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
We run a brand with a structure for number one commitment. It's all a joke between mom contractions and coffin fitted, so we disappear in the smoke.
Thank you kindly, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and all you Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, have the Niners found their quarterback? And Dave and I take a look back at how the quarterbacks finished in fantasy in 2016, plus $38,000 FFPC winner Chris Puchowicz drops some science on how he was able to get his 2 teams in the top 5 of the FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge and earned 4 Football Guys Players Championship titles last season as well. Dave, I know you probably don't have this information off the top of your head, but in the history of the playoff challenge, have we ever seen one player with 2 teams in the top 5 before? I believe that is an unprecedented feat that Chris Puchowicz accomplished this past year.
I think you're right, Balky. I also think there is no official record keeping or stat mongering.
Yeah, there really isn't, no. We have the winner's circle on the FFPC website that, to my knowledge, has not been updated for 2016, but I'll tell you what has been updated on the FFPC website. You can draft now. Online satellites, DEs available, Superflex leagues available. Did the first one start tonight?
Yes, the 35s are going off right now. Oh, by the way,
35, 77s, and 250s, all taking signups.
The University of Phoenix Online has announced a fantasy archaeology degree.
Really? What's that?
That's when you study that, you might be able to go back and check some of these, important things. So
that's in the syllabus.
Check it out. Yeah, check it out.
Okay.
Larry Fitzgerald, big fan. Fitz likes Phoenix Online.
Yeah, I believe that's Fantasy Archaeology 102 when you get to FFPC.
Look, there's like the 600 level courses.
Right.
That's what we're in the 600
Yeah,
level.
Okay, I got it.
NFFC, that's 100 level.
Fair enough. But it is exciting to see that we have drafts launching, as you put it today. 2017 for FFPC opens on 2/17. So that's very cool. I saw, of course, Brian Holgen tweeting about being in the first draft of the year of the FFPC. You can follow him on Twitter at Draft Addict. He is a former guest of this show, good guy, and I believe he drew the 4 spot in his first league tonight. And if I was reading the tweets right, he casually mentioned at work that he's already in an FFPC league and he got the 4 spot. And his coworker, who he just mentioned this to, his coworker is like, "Oh, I'm in the same league. I got the 11 spot." Just in happenstance. Didn't even realize they were in the same FFPC league. Turned out to be the first one.
How coincidental.
Very coincidental.
We'll have to talk to the regulators about that.
Yes, definitely do that. And I want to talk to the chat room right now. Shout out to everybody in there. Feel free to post any questions you all might have for us. If you're not connect with us on Twitter, at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak is where to find us. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to keep in touch with us there. If you want to give us a buzz, call us tonight, 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Our producer and mutual friend Rob and our audio engineer Bryce are checking that email box. We'll get to as many emails as we can later on in the show. We do have to get to the quarterbacks in review, Dave, which sort of unofficially signals the last few episodes of our season number 5 here on the HSFF Hour, season number 6. We'll kick off shortly after that. But we'll take a look back. As I always say, it's very important to look ahead in fantasy, almost as important to look back. So we will do that in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. As I mentioned, myffpc.com is where to go to draft now in Draft Experts Leagues and in Superflex Draft Experts Leagues. That's, of course, the dual quarterback. There are 2 quarterback leagues that we have. I guess they're not officially 2 quarterback leagues, Dave.
They are not officially.
They're not officially, but that's how most people play them.
Only the dummies.
You can check that out on myffpc.com. Also, plenty of Dynasty Orphan teams that are open at the message boards there. You can click on the forums, check out all the Dynasty Orphans that you can pick up today for low bargain basement prices. Email Dave at myffpc.com to make your best offer on that. We're definitely hammering down on the last few Dynasty Orphans. It's possible we could have some startups this year, but if you want to be guaranteed to play a high-stakes Dynasty with the FFPC this year, get those orphan teams taken care of. That is your best chance to play. And leagues as low as $250, as high as $2,500, a price point for everyone there. Very, very exciting. Next week on the show, Dave, we'll actually be talking about mine and Real Leroy's Kentucky Dynasty team.
Oh, very exciting.
Startup that will be drafting next Thursday, and I'll probably post some stuff on the Facebook page so people can pay attention there.
That's going to be riveting.
I'm not going to tell you where I pick in that draft.
Really?
I'm going to have
You're teasing us on your draft spot.
And I'm going to see if you can guess my team again on the show, which you did very good last time. We'll see if you can do it.
Thank you.
Make it 2 for 2. All right, let's get into...
I'm not going to be on the show next week.
No. Oh, that's right. We'll have to do it in 2 weeks. I forgot about that.
Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
It's a late flight coming back.
That's totally understandable, so don't worry about it. I did know that, and I forgot about it.
They screwed me.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I have somebody in mind for next week.
Good, I'm sure it'll be much better.
Yes. Impending free agent Michael Floyd pled guilty to 1 count of extreme DUI. I believe we've talked about this on the show, Dave.
I love that charge.
Extreme! Apparently in Arizona there is a charge called extreme DUI. All the surfers and, of course, the snowboarders constantly being picked up for that in Arizona.
That's really funny.
That was in Scottsdale, yesterday and Thursday in Scottsdale City Court. This according to Mike Jurecki on Twitter. The 6 other counts against him were dismissed after he pled guilty to this. He will serve a 120-day jail sentence, 24 days in county jail, 96 days of essentially home detention, as it were. 30 hours of community service must also be completed by Floyd, and he will have to pay more than a $5,000 plus fine.
What was his BAC?
He blew a .217, which is more than... I think is it more than triple the
No, it's not.
The legal level there?
0.08, so 0.24.
No, is that what it is in Arizona though? I thought it was .07 in Arizona.
I don't really know the minutia of that.
Oh, come on. You say you're from Wisconsin.
Well, in Wisconsin it's 0.08.
Yes, I know.
I'm actually surprised it's that low. Wisconsin, I figured it'd be like 0.17.
Maybe that's
good enough. Whatever. So, yeah,
you and I,
0.217 is really not, that's not that extreme, to be honest with you.
In Arizona statutes, that is extreme DUI.
Probably like 6 or 7 Old Fashions.
I don't think he was drinking Old Fashions. Speaking of which, is that what...
Do they have
did you have an Old Fashioned at Rye tonight?
Yes, I did.
I was wondering if that's what that was. Yeah, how was that?
This was pretty good.
Did you have dinner there, too, or just drinks?
Yeah, we had dinner, yeah.
And
it wasn't on purpose. I mean, I don't want to give them the whole story.
You don't have to get into the whole story.
It was great. Dinner was great.
Okay, interesting. Because I have not heard... You're the first person to tell me that, about that restaurant.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Because
everybody else is always kind of
expensive and pretentious, so they don't.
Well, maybe the pretentiousness. I've never heard anybody complain about the price there because I think you kind of know what you're paying when you get in, but people just seem to be underwhelmed by the food. The drinks are different. The craft cocktails they have there and everything, very good.
Yeah, the food was fine. I mean, I had a fish fry, which I don't normally ever get, but I thought
that'd
be
fish fry at Rye.
Yeah, I thought that'd be interesting because it's supposedly this upscale restaurant. So I'm going to have an old fashioned and a fish fry. I thought that'd be kind of ironic.
Steak tartare or a fish fry.
My daughter had the steak, whatever the filet mignon.
getting back to Michael Floyd, you and I had a wager on this that I believe that he would be on the Patriots roster for Week 1 of 2017. I am sticking to that.
Yes.
But I no longer believe it.
Yeah.
Is Michael Floyd's career over at this point? I mean, what do you do with him in Dynasty? Are you throwing out lowball offers to try to get him as your last guy to keep on your roster at this point? Are you unloading him? Right? Yeah. Are you unloading him and trying to get anything for him? What are you doing here?
I hope he got his degree. I mean, it's good school, and hope he gets a good job.
Yes. I believe he left a year early.
I hope he's got a bunch of credits. I would get rid of him. I wouldn't know. I don't know him anywhere.
You would just cut him. You wouldn't even shop him around. When cut downs come, you're dropping him.
I would send out offers, but then I'd put like an LOL in the comments. Like Floyd. Like
I wouldn't put an
LOL.
I wouldn't put an LOL. I'd just put something like pulling my hair out in desperation.
Something like that.
Two-Packer wants to know when registration begins for the Revelations Draft, which we'll be covering live on the show.
Oh, I don't know, a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks?
Months.
All right. It won't be months. At least I don't think it will be. Once again, we'll be covering the Genesis and Revelations Draft live on the show. That is always a fun time as well. So we'll tell you when you can register for that, and you can play against Two-Packer and all the other great players in the Revelations Draft.
And just to confirm, the .217 is not 2%. Is alcohol.
Here we go again. That's just so fantastic. Oh, no. No, Balky made a boo-boo, and we all continue to find comedy year after year. That's just great. No, I'm glad. I'm glad the studio audience is behind you on that one. That's fantastic.
All right, go ahead.
Moving on. ESPN's Jason Reed has reported that, quote-unquote, former Redskins officials who know Kirk Cousins, i.e. the people who were in the organization when they drafted him.
An unnamed White House source said that Trump.
All right, let's keep Trump out of it. They've said that Cousins does not want to be a Redskin. He would prefer to be franchise tagged again this year rather than sign a long-term deal with the team. The Washington football team, as well as Kirk Cousins, have made little progress on a long-term deal. I'm sure that Kirk Cousins is probably pretty ticked off that he's had these two baller seasons the last couple of years and still has not done enough to sew up a long-term deal there. The Washington front office, who we heard Scott McGlowan is already on thin ice with ownership there. He might have to, he might only have a year left.
What do you think his blood alcohol content is?
All right, we don't need to get into that either. But again, we see the report here from Jason Reed, this and the Roto-World blurb saying that the offensive coordinator for the Redskins, when they drafted Kirk Cousins, Kyle Shanahan actually literally stood on the table so that this is after they took Robert Griffin III in the first round, that they wanted to get that he wanted Kirk Cousins as well. Now Shanahan has his own team in San Francisco. Is there fire here? I mean, there's obviously smoke. Is there fire about Kirk Cousins potentially being the Niners quarterback next year, Dave? And if so, I think we've got to be dropping him quite a bit in fantasy rankings because he simply does not have the weapons in San Francisco that he will have in Washington.
You mean next year, meaning this coming year?
This coming year, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, I don't know. What kind of weapons does he have in Washington?
Well, he's got Jordan Reed, obviously, which has...
He's got him about 10 games out of the year.
Okay.
Jackson's hurt all the time.
Jameson Crowder.
Garcon's gone.
Garcon and Djax are probably gone.
Crowder is awesome. That's good. He's like the only good
player. Well, yeah, you look at San Francisco. They got Carlos Hyde and...
Yeah, there's
Carlos Hyde.
They draft a few guys.
Yeah, Jerry Rice, John Taylor.
Is Bolden back yet?
Dwight Clark. So
it's a little rough. The cupboard is a bit bare. But I mean, Cousins is. I think the quarterback does help make the players more. I do believe more so than the receivers help make the quarterback.
Give me the crystal ball prediction. What percentage chance does Kirk Cousins have of being the starting quarterback for Washington this coming season?
Washington?
Yeah.
75.
I was even go higher. I was going to say like 90. I don't think there's much to this.
Okay.
I think that he's going to be
like
there.
Niners 5.
Yeah, somewhere around there. They might be the second highest team though. I mean, when you look at potentially who could be there. DKSports.com reports Ladarius Green is not currently in the concussion protocol in the NFL.
That's DK Pittsburgh Sports.com.
What did I say?
You said DK Sports. That's a completely different site.
That's my side. That's my side
Sports.
business. I was trying to get a plug in for my Donkey Kong Sports
DK Sports was
website.
taken when these guys looked for it.
Right. So anyway, he's not in the protocol, but he has yet to be cleared. This is more fuzzy news about Ladarius Green. And you know what's funny, Dave, is I have this. I think I mentioned this on the show that I have this tearaway movie quote calendar.
You've spoken to me about it previously.
Yeah, okay. So yesterday was from
funny.
Ronan,
Yeah.
and it was, when there is any doubt, there is no doubt. There's plenty of doubt with Ladarius Green here, so there's no doubt that I have of this guy I don't have any interest in him. We saw Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers brass talking up Jesse James, how excited they were for him this coming year.
Right.
Whether they believe that or not, or whether it's just, trying to get the positive vibes moving forward on who the Pittsburgh tight end is going to be, doesn't really matter which one of those is true, because the fact of the matter is it's probably going to be Jesse James next year, and I don't know if Ladarius Green is going to make the team. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said that Green will probably keep his roster spot. Art Rooney, the president of the team, was non-committal on that. Next month, he signed
He's probably all pissed off.
4-year, $20 million deal in March. Did not live up to it this year, mostly because of injuries.
Yeah, he's done nothing.
We look at this tight end position next year. I think that James is the guy if I was drafting an FFPC right now, I'd be drafting Jesse James ahead of Ladarius Green. No question.
I probably would too. I mean, Ladarius Green, he's always been like this all potential guy who's never done anything, especially over the long term.
Right.
I mean, I think he has so much potential, but he's just always been this perpetual tease.
Looks like Tarzan, plays like James.
Doesn't play.
Yeah. We have Chris Puchowicz coming up here, the $38,000 winner in FFPC. What?
Yeah, the looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane comment. Yeah, that might be kind of sexist.
I don't think it's sexist. I don't remember.
That's insulting to Jane.
If you
the social justice warriors are not going to like these types of comments, Paul.
The social justice warriors need to look at the movies and read the books or whatever it was, because I don't remember Jane being very athletic in there. I do remember Tarzan being very athletic.
She might look good, and maybe Tarzan.
Fine, looks like Tarzan and Jane, plays like Jane.
That's still insulting.
No, it's not insulting. It's the truth.
Virtue signaling.
The Giants released Rashad Jennings this week, according to Jordan Renan on Twitter. He was set to make $2.48 million. And we're back. Don't know what happened there.
Did you lean on the space bar?
I think that they did not want. They wanted to hear from Chris Puchowicz, the show, the Automaton did, and did not want to hear any more Rashad Jennings news. Yeah, the only reason I bring this up that the Giants are cutting him. You'd say, "Oh, Balky, this looks good for your Paul Perkins wager."
Nope.
That the Giants are going to stay away from him. I don't believe it is, because I think that this signals that the Giants are probably going to be drafting
a running back in the first
in the first 3 rounds, or maybe they go into free agency. Maybe they go out and get a guy who played for Ben McAdoo in Green Bay, Eddie Lacy.
Could be Fat Eddie.
Possibility.
Could be.
All right. Well, we just took a break technically. But we're going to take another one here. We're going to have.
Unfortunately, I can hear Balky again. That's a two-packer.
Yeah, well, they can't all be winners. We do have a winner coming up, a $38,000 one in Chris Puchowicz in the FFPC last year. This is Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour will be right back on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Technical difficulties be damned. We are back here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. Sorry for that little malfunction back there. I don't know what it was. Apparently we can't talk about Rashad Jennings on the show. I'll remember that going forward. We do want to talk about our next guest as I introduce him onto the show. He not only won four Football Guys Players Championship League titles last year, but he also got 2 teams to finish in the top 5 of the 2016 world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. He tallied more than $38,000 in winnings last season, a.k.a. nearly $40,000, and he's here to tell us how he did it tonight. Please welcome into the show Chris Puchowicz. Thanks for coming on the show tonight, Chris.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Very exciting to have such a big winner on in the latter part of our season here as we kind of turn the page to 2017. You obviously crushed it this past season. We want to find out what your secrets were, how you were able to do it. Before we get to that, tell us what you're doing for a living when you are not playing fantasy football.
Yeah, so during the day I'm in corporate finance, a little bit different than fantasy football, right? But It's good. I like to keep things separate, so I do that during the daytime. At nighttime, when it's football season, focus on football. When it's the off season, focus on stock investing. So just keeping busy all the time.
Excellent. Do you have any hot tips?
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
For an honest broker,
take a look at Skechers, SKX.
All right, Skechers. That's cool.
All right.
SKX.
I was not expecting that.
You know what? I admire a person who has the balls to actually give out a pick and say these other guys, like,
right,
compliance, whatever BS that they're talking about.
Are you calling anybody out?
No one I can remember. All right. Anyway, Chris, you entered several teams in this year's playoff challenge. You had 2 in the top 5, which is crazy. Bulky, how many teams do we have over on this
2,750.
Wow, and a third just outside the top 100. Notice how I didn't say 100.
All right, moving on.
How did you manage to get those 3 teams to finish so high?
Yeah, so you know what? Last year was the first year that I entered the playoff challenge. I think I only did 1 team and did horrible, right? So this year, as opposed to following the players, I followed the teams a lot, and so I felt pretty confident about the paths that the teams would take through the playoffs, right? So I felt good about Green Bay playing a couple games in there. I thought Dallas would lose, right, their first game to Green Bay. And so I took the brackets and kind of plotted who I thought would go where. The only one I actually got wrong was I thought Green Bay would take Atlanta, which obviously was not a good call. But other than that, right, I was able to predict how many games each team would play. From that, then you can start going down the list of the players and, who's advantageous at each position, who's going to have the widest scoring margin based on the number of games. And you also got to fade a couple people, right? So, like Ezekiel Elliott, I had 10 teams. I didn't take him in any. I faded him. I thought he'd struggle a little bit in his first playoff game.
Wow, that's nice.
And a couple players, you pick them for all 10, right? So I was, some people want to hedge. They're interested in trying to have a positive ROI. A 25% is good ROI. For me, it's more, kind of win big or go home. So I was putting up the $2,000. And I said, all right, if I could turn this into something significantly more, it's worth it for me. Otherwise, I'm going to throw away $2,000. And it just turned out that, what I was thinking actually played out pretty well, right? So I had Aaron Rodgers in them all as an example. But also when you do that, sometimes you get hurt. So I had the Raiders defense in there thinking, it's a good first-round matchup. They're excited to be in the playoffs. They're playing Osweiler, right, who's kind of sucked all season, and they put up a big fat 0 on the defense side there. So that hurt me a little bit. Otherwise, maybe from tie for 3rd and 5th place, I could have bumped up to maybe 1st and 2nd place.
That's interesting because I think so many people will just look at the player first before the team, but you hit the nail on the head. If you can predict which teams are moving on and which are going to go the furthest, that's going to give you a leg up on a lot of the other teams in this competition. Now, when you look at, formulating lineups for all these different teams, did you sort of plot each lineup based on the same playoff bracket results that you had projected and just kind of picked and chose like, a different quarterback here, a different receiver here, a different running back here from the same team? Or, did you vary up what could have happened in the playoffs? Say Dallas going to the Super Bowl, or some maybe Kansas City going to the Super Bowl. Did you figure any other potential results of the playoff bracket when you formulated these teams, or did you just go with what your original projection and then sort of switch the players up after that?
Yeah, no. So I did the original projection, right? The thing is, if you have almost 3,000 people in the contest and you want to place very high, I think you have better odds by doing the same core guys and then mixing up a couple on the end. And this way, if your core guys do well, and you mix up a couple on the end that you're not too sure about, a lot of the teams where you think they're only going to be playing one game, who do you pick from that team? That's a little bit harder than saying, okay, I think Green Bay is going to play 3 or 4 games. I'm going to go for Aaron Rodgers there. And so that's what I did. I think the only team where I kind of mixed it up in half and half, I took Devonta Freeman in half and Julio Jones in half, even though I thought they were going to be playing, the Falcons were going to be playing a couple games there. But, you want some contrarian points of view, and you think Julio Jones is going to be high owned. So, if something happens there or teams double team him like they should have, then Devonta Freeman could be a sneaky guy to get you over the edge there.
Chris, did you have any crazy out there picks, as far as any of your teams go? In other words, maybe taking somebody other than, this is just an example, taking somebody from the Falcons other than Jones, Freeman, or Ryan, like a Mohamed Sanu or a Tevin Coleman or something. Did you have any like crazy picks that ended up panning out for at least a game or two in any of your lineups?
No, actually. I mean, I took a couple that didn't work out too well, right? So from the Cowboys, I took the kicker, Dan Bailey, for a couple instead of, right, because I said I faded Ezekiel Elliott through them all. I took Des Bryant in a couple, and then I took Dan Bailey in a couple, just in case both guys got shut down in the playoffs. No, there was no surprise ones. I mean, I saw, one of the guys who was playing, he got bumped up pretty high in the leaderboard the last game because he took James White, which was surprising, right? And he put up that huge monster game in the Super Bowl. He did nothing before that. And then when you double up the points for the Super Bowl game, right, James White actually did pretty friggin' well, and right, bumped the guy up from out of nowhere into, I think he was like the top 15, somewhere around there.
That's sort of like a recurring theme we've seen this year. We saw Mike Kuzma come out of nowhere to win the Football Guys Players Championship. We've seen now James White, who scores 3 touchdowns, sets a Super Bowl record for receptions in a game, gets a team that's nowhere in the PC all the way up into the top 15 of the Super Bowl. Pretty crazy.
Makes it fun.
Makes it fun, makes it compelling.
Or depressing.
Or depressing, yes.
Remember Sproles did that a few years ago. That was our big thing. That Sproles went crazy.
Yeah, what game? Who are they playing in that? Because that was an action scoring thing too. Because wasn't one of them like a punt return for a touchdown?
Yeah, he had a number of touchdowns.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. I remember that.
Anyway,
moving on.
Okay, so you crushed the playoff challenge, but you also won 4 Football Guys Players Championship league titles. Not just made the. Usually people are like, "Oh, I made the playoffs. That's great. We'll see what happens." You actually won 4 titles. Congrats on that, Chris. Was there anything special that you did in all 4 of those leagues that, any secrets you can unlock for our listeners?
Yeah, so to take it in context, right, I had something like 30 teams out there, so it's not like I won 4 out of 4 or 4 out of 10.
Well, don't
so
tell our listeners that.
No,
keep that on the down.
Chris, we're building you up here.
Edit that out, though.
Yeah, I will. I'm not going to have a $38,000 winner just sabotaging himself live on the air. 4 wins is 4 wins. No matter how you slice it, we understand what you're saying, though. But 4 league championships. How did that? Were those different than the ones that you didn't win this year? Or was it just a matter of those guys staying healthy? What was it?
No, you know what? It's actually I do daily fantasy, and so that's where I have the bulk of my bankroll, right? So I focus time-wise there. And so after a few games, I just can't keep up with the number of teams that I have, and I'm doing it by myself. So I just take the guys who are, the teams that are doing well, either point-wise or schedule-wise, and I just focus on them. And then, if I have time to go and look through the other teams and the free agency and see who should be playing this week, I do. It's a little bit of a squeeze. And so, if I did this dedicatedly, I think instead of 4, I probably could have won, 8 to 10. In terms of secrets, not really. It's kind of the same strategy I had for the playoff challenge, where I'm going to load up on the key guys if I could get them in the draft. And this way, then I'll have variation on the back end, right? So a couple back end hits, like I picked Jordan Howard on the teams when he was available in the late rounds, which was a nice hit. Cameron Brate and a couple. I forget who else. But again, I'm going with the same core guys, mixing up the guys in the later stages to get some variation in there. And, it's a risky strategy. I mean, if you do well, you're going to do well, right, if the core guys do well. And if not, then you're going to potentially lose it all. So, again, it's, are you a guy who, a grinder guy, or are you a guy who wants to go out there and try to hit it big?
I thought one of the comments that Chris just made was really interesting, Balky, where a lot of times you hear people say, oh, these guys have like 20, 30, 40, 50 teams. How can I compete against these guys? Right. They have so many teams. But actually, he's almost saying, like, look, I have like 8 to 10 teams that are doing pretty well. I'll focus on those. Maybe 3 or 4 of them win titles like this. Right. But effectively, he's saying that 20 of these teams, I'll kind of half-assedly pay attention to them at last.
Be competitive, not tank, whatever.
Yeah, as it moves along. Right, but I'm not going to really like go crazy to really do a great job. So I mean, that's actually people should feel pretty good about that if they just own a few teams.
David Hubbard on the High Stakes Lowdown. Not his last appearance.
Shameless plug.
He was on the first ever episode, which you can listen to, rotoviz.com/podcast.
Nice. Oh, that was good.
You can listen to David Hubbard talk about, because he owns a lot of teams. Of course, David Hubbard and Nelson Sousa won our FFPC main event this year. And he talked about, I manage all these teams, and he and Nelson, hundreds of teams across, various contests or what have you. And he said, people always talk about, oh, that guy will win it, because he's got all these teams. Well, you still got to you still have to manage them. You still have to make the lines. And he said, man, I think about guys who only have one team. And he said, you better be babying the hell out of that team if that's your only team, because, you should be able to put a lot more time into that one squad than I can in any of my individual teams. And he also said, he gave the advice, is like, if you want to, really win, if you want to make sure your buck goes the furthest, you got to treat each draft and each team like it's your only one, and I think that was a big reason why he was successful this year. Chris, I want to bring this back to you. Of course, Chris Puchowicz, $38,000 winner in the FFPC last year in the Playoff Challenge and the Football Guys Players Championship. You said you manage all these teams by yourself, and I think it's interesting. You have all these FPC teams, and then you're doing your daily stuff on the side as well. You look at the lineup decisions that have to be made on Thursdays and Sunday mornings. You look at the waiver decisions that have to be made on Wednesdays and Fridays. I mean, how hectic was that for you when you're doing this without any help? You're doing this all by yourself. What was that like? Take us through that.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. Because I focus on the daily, there were a lot of times where the Thursday night I just wouldn't have the time to update, and I'd miss a guy who had a big game. And you kind of, kick yourself in the butt about that. But, you got to set your priorities on which one could potentially earn you more. And so it's also advantageous for everybody else in the tournament, in the tournament or in my league, right? Because they're getting a guy who's only dedicating maybe a 30 or 40% effort. And to your point, if this is their only team and they're doing it 100%, even if I have 30 teams, it doesn't give me an advantage, right? Because I'm not managing them all to 100% capacity. So it's definitely crazy. I missed out on a lot of the free agents. You can't think about free agent strategy and kind of how much do you want to bid on a guy. When you have 30 teams and you got to think about that, if you really want to do it in depth, you should be looking at the other teams in your league and do they need this guy? How much is left in their bankroll? What should I make my bid? Because you don't want to overpay for guys. Because come the end of the season, right, if you advance and you got those 2 weeks, to snag anybody last minute, and especially towards the end of the year when people start getting hurt, tired, the coaches are benching guys and resting them for the playoffs and stuff. You really need to have great guys on your bench to pick it up. And so it's very difficult, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart if you're going to do a lot of teams there.
Okay, Chris, we're going to look ahead a little bit to free agency starting soon. Is there any big names that you expect to change teams? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 big names, name whoever you want, that you think will have a huge impact on fantasy.
Now, I have 17 guys that I think that you can name here that you
From
expect
1 through 3.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I think Kirk Cousins is going to stay put there, but I think the Redskins will be interesting to see how that plays out, right? If Deshaun Jackson goes back to Philly, Pierre Garçon's not going to be a number one wide receiver, so who are they going to bring in? Or are they going to draft somebody high? Or does somebody else make Cousins a long-term contract offer? So definitely where he goes. Adrian Peterson, another one. I think, he's talking about, hey, the Giants, he sent out a tweet the other day, hey, the Giants are making some interesting moves, kind of inferring that he wants them to take a look at him. I think Green Bay would be a great spot for him. Imagine Aaron Rodgers not having to worry about the pass rush, right, when you have Adrian Peterson behind you. So that would be interesting. I'd love to see that.
Hey, listen.
3.14 yards a carry.
You mixed Peterson in with Ty Montgomery back there. You have a full running back.
That's true, actually.
I like that idea. I think that is interesting. The fact of where Peterson could go. I think it's the Washington as a team for free agency, that standpoint. I think that's so compelling when you consider the roles that Jackson and Garcon and Crowder will have either on Washington or a different team. He threw Jordan Reed into that as well. Or if Washington takes a running back in the first round, oh my gosh. I mean, how can you possibly gauge how that team is going to go this coming year for fantasy? I think that's interesting. Let me ask you, Chris, about Alshon Jeffrey. Is he a guy that you think Chicago finds a way to keep him? Or do you think that he ends up on a different team making some plays? And either way, what round is he looking as a good pick for you this coming year for what we know right now?
Yep, I think Chicago will keep him. Otherwise, the fans might revolt if they haven't already, right? They got rid of Forte, but Jordan Howard kind of helped that heartache. They let go of Brandon Marshall, and you saw him kind of come out, break out the past couple of years in the Jets, right? So, I think the fan base there is probably pretty pissed. And it's interesting. It depends where Jay Cutler goes, right? I don't think what's the upside for the Bears to keep him? I don't think much. I think he leaves there. And who are they going to bring in, right? So the reason why Alshon Jeffrey, I think, was so valuable the past couple seasons was because Cutler would always focus in on him and give him, double-digit targets a game on average. So whoever they bring in there, Kevin White should be back to full health. And, it depends. Is the new QB going to spread out the ball, right? If you think about this past year, Odell Beckham was being drafted in the top 3 picks in, every single draft that I had entered. And Eli Manning spread out the ball a lot more, and Odell Beckham didn't finish as a top 3 guy, right? Even though he has that capability, it's just because the ball, how they spread out the ball in the offense. So if they bring in a QB who's a little bit more open, not keying in to focus in on one guy, I think Alshon Jeffrey's value definitely drops. Where is he drafted? I think this past year he was probably, I want to say third round, somewhere around there, 3rd to 4th round. If Cutler's there, for some reason they do re-sign him, I think that makes sense again. If not, I think maybe 5th, 6th, 7th round. I probably won't touch him myself just because that offense, it's so anemic, and other teams are just going to double him. So I don't think there's much upside there.
The other thing to keep in mind, too, as we pay attention to this Chicago Bears situation for fantasy purposes, is there's a very real possibility. If you look at a lot of the mock drafts that are already out there, a lot of them have the Bears taking a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick. And if that happens, you could also see Chicago. We already saw them sink some money into Josh Sitton last year to play guard for them. They might load up on offensive line and just have Jordan Howard really be the focal point of that offense, and maybe Alshon Jeffrey is not the engine driving that 2017 Bears team. I mean, that's a very real possibility too. If it is a rookie quarterback, if he does learn, baptism by fire, so to speak, you may not see him, making all the moves, spreading out the ball as much as Jay Cutler had in the past. So that's another thing to keep in mind. We have much more to get to with Chris Puchowicz here, the $38,000 win in the FFPC playoff challenge, as well as the Football Guys Players Championship last season. We do have to get to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Chris, about his purchase of fantasyfootball.net and how it played a role into his bankroll for fantasy football.
Sweet.
That is all coming up right after this. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Happy President's Day weekend, everybody out there. Dave, what are you doing for President's Day here this weekend?
Nothing.
Nothing. All right.
I don't have any plans yet. I'll figure out a whole itinerary tomorrow.
Well, I'm very excited. Keep me posted on that. I'll be paying attention to your Twitter feed at David Gerzak. I'm Eric Balkman.
I'm investigating this whole. Well, one thing I'm going to be doing. Kyrie Irving.
God, we're getting into this.
He's.
By the way, this is the HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. We have Chris Puchowicz on, our guest tonight, $38,000 winner in the FFPC last year. Dave wants to talk about the Earth being flat for a little bit.
Yeah, Kyrie Irving. He says the Earth's flat. I'm going to do a little bit of investigating on this. I think he went to Duke for a while, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Duke's a good university.
Yeah.
I'm going to check this out. I'm going to check out this whole flat Earth theory. I'm going to spend some time this weekend looking into it. I don't know what you think, Chris, about this. You're in corporate finance. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the logos in corporate finance are like round, globy type Earths. So I'm sure you think it's round, right?
Maybe they're flat Earths. We don't know based on the logo.
Well, he wasn't in college for that long, right? He came out after a season or two, so maybe he didn't hit that course.
Yes, they might. Yeah, maybe astronomy and geology and
flat Earth is the Earth is round is a junior level course at Duke. This is probably not increasing the chances that your daughter goes to Duke, huh?
No, not really.
She crossed off the list.
If I was the dean of admissions at Duke, I'd be like, quash this story.
Well, I'd be like on Twitter right now, Neil deGrasse Tyson would be on there, just like it'd be so great.
Here at Duke, we believe in a round Earth.
Yeah. Let's move on and talk to Chris about. This is an interesting story that I think deserves mentioning. Chris, you purchased the web domain back in the day. You can tell us the storyline here, fantasyfootball.net, okay? You bought it. Tell us what happened and what the end result was after you had purchased that domain.
Yeah, sure thing. So, I love fantasy football. In the past, historically, I've been kind of a more smaller stakes player. But I wanted to start a site, and I approached the owner of fantasyfootball.net, who had owned the site for, 10, 15 years, something like that. And he wasn't using it. So I approached him to see if he was interested in selling it. We kind of went back and forth, and we settled up on a figure, high 4-digit figure, for him to sell the domain. So I purchased the domain, and then I got to work on it looking, what should I focus on? Should I do broad fantasy football? Should I have kind of a niche within there? And, that was over the course of, several weeks, maybe a month or two. At that time, I had parked the domain to just check out the traffic stats. If anyone clicks on ads, you get a little commission there. So, and while I was investigating what I should do with the site, somebody came along and made an offer on it, which was more than double what I paid on it. And so I thought about it, and, as I was looking around and seeing which direction I wanted to go, I saw the fantasy football sites out there, how many of them are great. I mean, they got teams of people, right? They're following every single move, every single day, putting it out there. And I said to myself, this is something that you really have to do full time. I have my day job. I can't do it full time. Let me sell it. But if I'm going to sell it, let me take what I'm getting for it, and let me go and go from a small stakes to high stakes player on daily fantasy, and also on the season long, right? Before this, I had purchased, a handful of teams, and I had gone up, and now I think this is the second year in a row I had 30-plus teams on my FFPC. And it worked out great, right? So I sold it within a few weeks. I got double what I paid. I took that all. I put it into the 30 teams. I put it into my daily fantasy, and from there, I turned it into a 6-figure gain for that year, which was a nice return.
Simply,
and certainly.
Wow.
It's stunning. Just what if it invest $9,000 in a fantasy domain or a website domain, flip it for more than double what you paid for it, and then take that money, invest it in a season long into daily, and now it's 6 figures. That's just crazy.
You can't. Hey, Skechers, you're not going to get that type of return with Skechers.
You're not. Listen, we gotta talk Hollywood movie options here. The Chris Puchowicz story. Who's playing you in the movie, Chris?
That's the plot?
Yeah.
Selling a domain name?
Selling a domain name, crushing it in fantasy, and then, of course, the climax of the movie is when you make the appearance in the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour with Eric Balkman, Dave Gerczak. Of course,
Sounds like a college film.
I will be played by Brad Pitt. Dave will, of course, be played by Jack Black. Chris,
I'm not that fast.
Chris, who?
Yeah, go to hell, Balky.
Louis Anderson, whatever, I don't care. Chris, who's playing you in the movie about Chris Puchowicz?
Oh, gosh, I'll take Matt Damon.
Perfect. So we got Damon, Brad Pitt, and Jack Black. Dave, this screams Oscar all over it.
I thought I was supposed to be the guy from CSI Miami, the redheaded guy.
Oh, David Caruso.
Yeah, that's my insult.
And so I would be
or the coach for the Cowboys.
I would either be
pale skin.
I would either be Sean Astin or Patton Oswalt in real life.
It's kind of like skinist. Like people are against my skin color.
I am a skinist. I totally am. I think that's just the definition of racism, is being a skinist.
But I'm a light-colored skinist. People don't like me because of the light color.
I gotcha. Chris, we got a couple of yes. We understand, Dave. We can post photos on this on Facebook and Twitter for those who've not seen you yet. Or they can just look at pictures of David Caruso and pretty much get the gist.
I'm much more handsomer.
Chris Puchowicz, we have a couple of emails from listeners that came in. The first one's from Mark in Charlotte, North Carolina. He writes, "Hey, Chris, would you consider taking a tight end in the first 2 rounds this season? And if so, which ones are possibilities?" Thanks for the email, Mark in Charlotte. I'm assuming this emailer is talking about FFPC leagues, Chris, as you look forward to 2017. Are there any tight ends worth your while taking in the first couple of rounds this season?
I got burned in 16. I was high on Jordan Reed, and we all saw what happened with his injuries, right? So I had taken him in the second round on quite a few teams, and so I had a lot of ground to make up on those teams because you're at such a disadvantage at that point. Would I take anyone? I don't think so. I think I learned my lesson. I would focus, if you have a top. First round, you got to take a running back, I think, this year. We saw Antonio Brown, right? He was drafted number 1 across the board. He didn't put up number 1 stats at the end of the year. I don't know who the number 1 pick is at this point. Is it Le'Veon Bell? Is David Johnson? I actually think I'm going to be fading David Johnson, fading Ezekiel Elliott this year. I think teams will catch up to Dallas. They're going to focus on stopping the run. Dak Prescott's going to have a regression. And I think Carson Palmer in Arizona, I think he's going to have a weak year. Larry Fitzgerald, right, another year older, and they say most of his passes are within the 5-yard. He catches them within 5 yards, so I think they're going to have trouble moving the ball down the field. They don't have any big receivers. They're going to have to get somebody. Right now they have J.J. Nelson and John Brown, two small, quick guys, but they're not very efficient. And so I think everyone's going to key up, kind of how we saw Todd Gurley, everyone keyed up on him this year. I think we're going to see something, not to the same degree, but to a similar degree on David Johnson next year. So I would avoid him with my first-round pick. I think, I'd take Le'Veon Bell in the first round or a high-quality wide receiver. In the second round, I'd take kind of best of what's out there, but I wouldn't take a tight end until maybe the 6th or 7th round this year.
Are you looking at Antonio Brown as still the number one receiver for you this year, Chris, or is it somebody else?
No, I'd probably go with Julio Jones. I think Antonio Brown, there's two. If Le'Veon Bell, right, there's no suspension this year like there was in 2016. He takes such a big share of the touches that I think he's definitely more valuable than Antonio Brown. I mean, if you look at the stats, I'd guess that probably receptions per game, they're pretty close. They're not as far away as you would think. And in a point per reception league, right, that's very valuable. But I would take a guy who's going to be the number one focus of his team, right? Julio Jones, not Odell Beckham anymore. Maybe Mike Evans might be a stretch in the first round, but if you could get him kind of towards the turn, I might think about a Mike Evans.
Yeah, Evans is a guy who obviously got a ton of targets last year. Tampa, more than ever, needs a second receiver to pair with Evans to make sure he is not getting doubled every play. That is going to be a situation we will watch in free agency as well as the draft. Second email tonight, Chris, it's from Sean in Abilene, Texas. He writes, "Congrats, Chris. Gun to your head, are Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall both on the Jets this year?" That is Sean in Abilene, Texas. Sean, thank you for the email. The Jets are a franchise that has not enjoyed a lot of success the past couple of years. They bring in Matt Forte last year. It gets off to a great start, really fizzled out. Bilal Powell had a couple of games. They still don't really have a tight end on that roster. And then you have Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall as the top two receivers. Who will they be catching passes from? We don't know, but are they both Jets in 2017, Chris? Can we assume that they will be, or do you think that one or both of these guys will be gone?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Jets might be over the salary cap currently. I think they got to let go of one of them. I think they'd let go of Marshall before Decker, just because of age. And Marshall also has the distraction right factor going on. So, I mean, you read reports about Antonio Brown, and he's a distraction. Maybe Pittsburgh should let him go, right? If Pittsburgh's thinking about that, then the Jets letting go Brandon Marshall should be a no-brainer if they want to free up some cap space. Again, they're also kind of rebuilding, right? They don't have a QB. The top two guys on there are gone. Christian Hackenberg, I mean, they wasted a second-round pick on him, and nobody on the Jets likes him now, right? And Bryce Petty obviously isn't the answer. So they're going to have to do something. They're either going to get somebody in the draft where you're rebuilding, right? So how valuable is the wide receiver one on a team where you're rebuilding with rookie QB? Or they're going to get a second-rate guy, maybe a Mike Lennon. I don't know who else they'd grab. Not many high-end QBs out there, right? Tyrod Taylor, Jay Cutler, but I don't see either the Jets spending money for either of them.
Chris, if I was a Jets fan, you just put me on suicide watch. This is depressing.
Yeah,
my team sucks, and there's no future.
It's not good news if you are a Jets fan this year, Chris.
When's the last time it was good news?
That's true.
Hey, fantasy team name for 2017, Dave. The Distraction Factor.
What the hell are you talking about?
I think that's a great team name. The Distraction Factor. You don't like it?
No.
Vetoing it?
Too obvious.
All right. Well,
not fun enough.
Okay. Well, let's get to a fun question then to try to pep things up. Chris, let's look ahead to 2017. You've given us a lot to think about as far as drafts go already, but give us a guy that you think could bust out. And I'm not, and by bust out I mean like as a bad first-round pick. I'm not going to let you pick Ezekiel Elliott or David Johnson because you poo-pooed both of them already. So somebody else other than those guys. And then a guy who might be a big value later on in drafts that you think people are kind of overlooking right now. Give us those two players as your selections this year, sir.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard, right, with the draft not happening yet in free agency. Nothing going on there yet. I would think about the Raiders' running game, right? They have the great offensive line. I think I want to say it's Latavius Murray's contract is up, and do they want to pay him the money. I don't think so. I think he's a decent back. He's probably like a Rob Kelly out of Washington, maybe a little bit better. But I don't think you're going to pay him the money that he's probably going to want. So I take a look at the backups there, DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard. Are one of them going to step up and be the guy behind that great offensive line? And you also got, right, the two wide receivers, a great quarterback, David Carr stepping up. So nobody's going to be able to just focus in on the running backs. I think he's going to have a lot of free reign, whoever that winds up with. Do they do Washington as the first two down back and Richard as the third down back? I don't know. But that could be kind of a sneaky draft pick. In terms of a bust, I don't know. I got burned by DeAndre Hopkins on a few of my teams this year as a first-round pick. He's a little bit obvious. I'd say A.J. Green. I'm not sure. I saw that they wanted to go out and get another wide receiver. They already have Eifert in the red zone taking the TDs. The running backs, they use them both evenly, and they throw it to Giovanni Bernard when they get down near the goal line quite often. So I might fade A.J. Green. I think there might be better value out there in the first round.
Look, I get what you're saying with Green. Let me bring it back to Hopkins a little bit. You said that would be kind of an obvious selection. So for you, the problems that plagued DeAndre Hopkins as far as the bad quarterback play in 2016, you believe that continues into 2017, and he is a guy that will not be on any of your teams this season?
Yeah, I mean, where are they going to go for QB? There's really no great free agents, right? Tony Romo's been linked to other teams. And other than that, you could go Tyrod Taylor, who's not a great passing QB. Jay Cutler, if Jay Cutler goes there, that would be interesting because he might feed the ball to Hopkins, and he's a gunner too. He's going to have his turnovers and pick sixes, and it's going to be a lot of opportunity to throw the ball. But I guess it depends where their QB situation goes before I start thinking about DeAndre Hopkins or not.
All right, Chris, this is our big question, and we always ask at the end. $38,000. It's a big haul for a number of people, not for you. You've got tons of cash, corporate finance, Skechers.
Think about all that money you're going to be making in Skechers,
but
too.
It's a rounding error for you. Either way, it's good for something. So what are you doing with all that money?
Yeah, I'm actually going to park in the stock market and just let it sit there, and it'll be part of my bankroll when July, August come around.
Smart. So he knows what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you're talking to a man that paid a high four-figure for fantasyfootball.net, turned that into a six-figure total through fantasy football. So it's a great story. It's fantastic.
Movie, great movie.
Yes.
Next Tarantino project.
Yeah, let's get some murder and some blood in there, and we'll toss around some racial slurs. I think that Tarantino has made those pretty prevalent in his films, so that goes without saying. Yeah, and you get into it on the show.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I do, but me and Tarantino, people of color love us because we're cool about it. They're all cool with us.
Yes.
Just ask us.
Yes.
Ask Tarantino. Ask me if they love it.
Yeah, definitely.
They don't.
I was trying to cover for you. Chris Puchowicz has been our guest tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Chris, congratulations on all your success that you enjoyed this past year. I hope more of it is coming for you in 2017. Thanks so much for doing the show. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon, man.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks. Chris Puchowicz, the $38,000 winner in the Football Guys Players Championship last year, 4 league titles, first player ever to have 2 teams finish in the top 5 of the FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge. Great stuff from him. I think we all learned a lot, and we have a lot to digest there. So we are going to go to a break. Dave, before we go to a break,
yes, sir,
you need to load up your screen with 2016 quarterback stats, because that will be what we are talking about when we come back from break.
Well, I got to figure, MFL updated their stuff, and now I got to figure out how this site works.
God forbid you actually use the FFPC site for something like that.
It doesn't lay out as well.
Oh, God, don't say that. Don't say that. Please play FFPC.
I'm used to carrying
in 2017. Okay. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how the quarterbacks finish. We'll give you some quarterback strategy, what we said at the start of the year, what we're saying now, and what we're going to be saying when 2017 drafts roll around, like they are right now in the FFPC. I'm Eric Balkman, and he's Dave Gerzak. This is the HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour rolls on here with Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. Fortunate enough to talk with Chris Puchowicz, who dropped by, talk about his big winnings in the FFPC last year. Let's talk about the quarterback position. How did they finish? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? how is this going to help us for 2017 drafts? Dave, an overarching question as we get into the quarterback discussion initially here. Did anything change for you last year and what you saw with how the quarterback scored in regards to the other positions? Did anything change that would maybe make you want to get an elite guy, make you pay up for a guy in an auction, a top 3, a top 5 guy, maybe draft one of those guys earlier than you would? Or is this sort of still business as usual, wait on quarterback, load up on running back, receiver, tight end in the FFPC format? Anything change for you on that front last year?
Not for me really, but I have been willing to draft quarterbacks somewhat. I don't want to say early, but not insanely late. Like if there's a guy that's out there 5th, 6th, 7th round, I will draft him. Matt Ryan had a really impressive finish, and he was a person that was just being pretty much thrown to the curb. I mean, it was
20th round pick.
It was insane how low. I think I'd have to look back on the shows. I think we had some comments that we thought, it seemed like he was free. I don't know why. We didn't know why he was free. But I don't think we were totally advocating for him.
No, I don't think we were. But I think what we did do when we covered these live drafts, we would always talk about, oh my gosh, I can't believe these quarterbacks you can get late, and his name always came up.
It's like, Matt Ryan. It's like that's just like free. Who knows? I mean, I never can understand like why he was just thrown to the curb as if he was so poor. But you look at Rodgers and Breeze, and Jake Rickroad will tell you those guys are consistently top 3, top 4, top 5 quarterbacks every single year. So Rodgers and Breeze, if you're getting them in the 5th and 6th rounds, you're doing just fine.
Right.
Although I still think Andrew Luck is always overrated. I can't draft Andrew Luck where he gets drafted.
But
he's always goes super too early for me.
I have never seen you draft Andrew Luck.
And you won't see me draft him.
But you know what I did see you do last year? Buy Andrew Luck when you already had Ben Roethlisberger in a 14-teamer.
We were drinking and it was an auction.
that was great.
It was a mistake. And by the way, there were a number of times where we started one or the other. It actually worked out fine for us, although the team wasn't very good overall.
It's because you had to. Those are the resources you had to soak into having a quarterback. You know who?
I think Big Ben was like $6.
You know who Kurt and I had in that league? Drew Brees.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You guys were pretty good.
Took second. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Which, by the way, you still owe me $100 for that league because you outscored it. You don't have to pay me now. It's fine.
My wallet's not here in the studio.
Oh, a likely story.
It's in the glove box.
So like getting back to quarterback, this is also coming from a guy, ladies and gentlemen, Dave Gerzak, who you made I believe a deadline deal in Carrington last year to get Tom Brady on your roster. So you were willing to not only pay up for a quarterback to get a championship, you were willing to pay up for an aging quarterback in a dynasty league.
I actually dealt Sammy Watkins for Brady, and that was a trade that probably a lot of people would be like, that's a dumb trade, and maybe it is. But, now Brady, they're talking about using him for another 4 or 5 years. I ended up winning the league, and Brady was a huge part of that. And I have no regrets. I mean, my wide receivers were good enough that I felt like I could part with Watkins. He's always hurt. Maybe he'll be fantastic going forward, but I have Brady now, so I'm happy. I'm fine with it.
Let's start talking about some of the quarterbacks and how they finished then. No surprise that Aaron Rodgers. First of all, how do you want to do this? Do you want me to look at stats weeks 1 to 16, or do you want me to include all 17 weeks?
You always ask. I don't really care.
Okay, so I have it all 17, so let's look at it that way. Okay, Aaron Rodgers finished as the number 1 quarterback. No surprise there. Is he your number 1 quarterback for 2017 if you are drafting one? If he's still out there in the 5th round and no other quarterbacks are off the board, are you taking him?
Oh, yeah, I would definitely look at it.
To me, like, if you look at a guy like Drew Brees, who, by the way, finished 2nd, look at the weapons he has. Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Kobe effing Fleener, which, by the way, I gotta get off that bandwagon.
Sheesh.
But he still has a good ground game in Mark Ingram. He still has Willie Snead there, who made a lot of plays last year. I think he's a guy that needs to be in that conversation as well with Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers in that same 5th, 6th round area.
Well, with Brees, I mean, because he's a number of years older, he has a higher, when you look at the charts on quarterbacks aging and their performance dropping off, he does have a significantly higher chance of him just dropping off the cliff, and all of a sudden arm strength goes or whatever. I don't believe it's going to happen, but there's a little bit more risk with Brees.
I feel like we should be hearing more.
And he doesn't run as much.
Reports coming out of New Orleans in the preseason. Oh, the Brees didn't throw today, or Brees only threw X number of passes. Like save the pitches on that arm. There's only so many left.
He should be sitting like literally every Wednesday. Like every Wednesday, she's like, oh, Drew Brees set up practice.
Yeah. Even Thursday, just have him run. Just jog around. Get loose.
Yeah.
Keep that rotator cuff nice and polished.
Yeah.
You look at number 6 on this list, Dave, behind Matt Ryan and Andrew Luck is Kirk Cousins. Guy we talked about on the show earlier, a guy that once again crushed it when Washington wanted to see him do it one more year. There's going to be some changes with the weapons that he has this season. I think if Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson are gone and you're counting on Jamison Crowder, Josh Doctson, Jordan Reed, I might be of the mind of letting him slip a little bit past the sixth quarterback off the board. And maybe everybody else will have that thought as well, that worried about how he'll do without those two guys there. But he's not a guy that I would draft as the sixth quarterback off the board.
Well, and on a points per game basis, he was the eighth quarterback. I mean, Andrew
there
Luck,
you go.
Andrew Luck was ahead of him at fourth, and Brady was fifth. Sorry if I got that wrong. Where did you have him at?
Sixth. That's total points.
All right. Let me just check this out. See, I think I'm going by...
Do you have it weeks 1 to 17 or weeks 1 to 16?
So
these are all problems you would not have if you're looking at this at myffpc.com.
Yeah, good point. All right, whatever. I might be wrong.
Okay, well,
either way,
yes.
I would rather have Brady. I actually would rather have Luck, not that I'm a big fan. And that makes sense, actually.
So you look at number 8 on this list behind... Well, let's talk about number 7, Phillip Rivers first.
Rivers is always cheap. He's always almost cheap.
I bet I get him a lot. They have a good running game, a head coach that knows how to get the most out of his running game, and Anthony Lynn. You have Keenan Allen coming back. You have both Gates and Hunter Henry, who really broke out last year. You still have Travis Benjamin and Tyrell Williams, who looked really good. This is a team with a lot of weapons. Playing in a new city, I'm sure there's going to be a transformation or a transition, for everyone there. But Rivers is a guy I think puts up great numbers again this year, and not a lot of people are in on him. I'm fine with Phillip Rivers again this year.
Well, here's the problem with Rivers. And if you look at, even when you get down to and this is just using historical stats this past year, he averaged 22.15 points a game. Then you have Bortles, Carr, Stafford, Winston, Mariota, Cam, which I would expect more of a Cam going forward, Carson Palmer, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, I expect more of him, and Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor is the worst on that list at 21.113 points per game, about 1 point less per game. So that's like a dozen quarterbacks that are about as good. And just chill.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now to further my point, I think you can make the argument that of all those guys, with the exception of Tyrod Taylor, Phillip Rivers is going to be going after every single one of those guys in drafts. So my point is, if you're going to wait on him...
Bortles, probably.
You think Bortles goes after Phillip Rivers?
Bortles, yeah.
I don't know. That was the next guy I was going to talk about, and he ended up as being the number 8 quarterback this year. I still think,
people are down on Bortles. He was so junky.
But you think about just the people we've had on this show since the season's ended. We've asked about the Allen Robinson, DeAndre Hopkins comparison, because those are 2 first-round wide receivers, up-and-coming receivers that had Boffo 2015s that we expected to do the same in 2016, and it didn't happen. And it seems like every single person we've talked to, they expect a rebound from Allen Robinson. Like, it's almost stupid to ask. They fully expect him.
That's true.
But when you talk about Hopkins, nobody's like, this is the year, man. He's coming back. Like, nobody's on the DeAndre Hopkins train. So I think the fact that Bortles is not only going to have Robinson, you saw Marquise Lee really step up last year. He still got, a healthy Allen Hurns coming into this season. He wasn't healthy the last half of 2016. He's going to have a lot of weapons there. He needs the running game. But Bortles is a guy, you could be right.
He'll be pretty cheap, though. He won't, he'll be really inexpensive. Right. Make him part of a QBBC.
Maybe Bortles Rivers as a QBBC next year. That could be interesting.
You could do 3 quarterbacks. It's always easy.
The number 10 quarterback that I think has the potential to ascend potentially to – he has the potential to potentially ascend, yeah. To the top 5 this year, Jameis Winston, a guy that really put up good numbers in Tampa. He's going to have Mike Evans back. They're seemingly going to have a much improved number 2 receiver there. Cameron Brate really stepped up as a playmaking tight end for that Buccaneers offense last year. Winston is a guy that I think could be interesting in drafts this year. However, Dave, the hype train could be out of control on him, and he might go earlier. As you said, this glut of quarterbacks here, he might be drafted on the higher end of that glut.
This is really early. My personal strategy would be just to wait for whoever reaches on what quarterback. And I would be fine with players like Jameis. No, Jameis will go high. So Derek Carr, he's another young quarterback people don't talk a lot about.
Right.
And then, Marcus Mariota, Cam Newton, he's great. Dak Prescott, second year. Russell Wilson kind of had an off year, runs a lot. There's so many opportunities. There's so many good players, and you're definitely going to get one in the top 15 to 16. So even if you kind of fart around on quarterback and then miss out where people are backing him up, you can still get one that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that Prescott is a guy that'll be drafted right around Winston, and he's another guy that I'm not going to want on my teams because first of all, I think that people are remembering how good the Dallas team was rather than how good Prescott was. I mean, he was averaged 21.1 points last year for fantasy, which is very good, but when you consider that he's going to be pushed up because of how that Dallas team did, just, subconsciously, he's not a guy that I'm going to be very excited about. A guy I will be very excited about that I think I might be able to get a deal on in a few leagues, Russell Wilson, a guy that was a top 3 to 4 quarterback the last few years, dealt with a leg injury seemingly all season that hampered his ability to run. We already saw the Jimmy Graham renaissance last year. Doug Baldwin proved that he could be a wide receiver one for the last 2 years now. You have Tyler Lockett and Paul Richardson that made a lot of plays throughout the season as well. Lockett, another guy who's dealing with a PCL sprain too. So there's a lot of things to like about Russell Wilson this upcoming year, and I think the fact that he's going to have 2 healthy sticks under him is going to be...
Sticks?
Yeah, sticks. 2 healthy sticks under him. It's going to make him very valuable as a fantasy commodity, and I think a lot of people will not be on him.
I'll never use that term.
Sticks?
Yes.
Move the sticks. Russell Wilson will be.
For me to draft Wilson, I just need one small thing. I just need some puff pieces. Give me a few puff pieces.
No, I don't want those.
No, it's not going to move him up. I actually need it where to say, he's
okay.
taking the off season seriously. He realized he hit the buffet circuit too hard. He was hanging out with his wife too much. He's rededicated himself. Give me a couple of those. And then
hanging out with his wife too much.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Yeah.
These are professional athletes. Hang out with them after you end your career, and where you say, I didn't spend enough time with my wife and children.
Right.
Like Steve Smith did.
They'll understand.
Yeah, probably. Unless they've left you already.
In which case, the ship has sailed. What happened to Cam Newton? I mean, my God, for the guy who was the number one fantasy quarterback.
He got dinged up
last year.
Missed the game.
321 fantasy points, finishes as the number 16 quarterback. If you drafted him,
it was a lost season for Cam.
If you drafted him or bought him in an auction, you probably did not win your championship.
I made a lot of money betting against Carolina this last year.
Yeah, you did.
Didn't make much money drafting Cam Newton, however. I lost a lot of moves.
Did you? How many leagues did you have him in? I just remember the one.
I had him in a couple.
Oh, did you really?
Not too many.
All right.
But yeah, it was.
He writes the ship then?
I think so. I mean, I think that they had a tougher schedule.
Right.
They lost. They didn't lose. They got rid of Norman, right? The corner.
Yep.
And
but shouldn't that be a boon to Cam Newton? Having a worse defense?
But they were losing games. And Newton, I don't know that Newton's quite the leader that he makes himself out to be. And so they just kind of imploded. They had a rough season. I think they will come around.
Okay. So and Kelvin Benjamin, a year.
Remember? Okay, this was 2 years ago. Remember Cam Newton? He was getting drafted in the 11th round.
That's true.
Oh, Cam's not that good.
That's
blah blah blah. Now it went crazy. Now hopefully this year be like, Cam's going in the 11th round again. That's fine. I'll be happy to take him.
If the Panthers end up taking Leonard Fournette, which a lot of people have mocked Fournette going to the Panthers at 8 overall, you think that hurts Cam Newton's value at all a little bit? Because I got to believe that they would be giving Leonard Fournette the ball in goal line situations. And with the shots that Cam Newton has already taken running the football, does that hurt his value at all if they get a rookie running back like that?
I think it could slightly, actually, when they actually have a real running back, not Stewart, or a fullback that they have to hand it off to. But Cam will still get his from the 1 yard line here and there where they run those little, fake handoff sneaks around the around the end.
Number 17 quarterback as far as total fantasy points last year, Carson Palmer. Can he get another good year in fantasy with John Brown, J.J. Nelson, Larry Fitzgerald, those guys there? Or is he a guy, I mean, clearly you're not drafting him as your starter. Is he a guy that you can plug in good situations, good matchups throughout the season as your backup? Or is he a guy that, I know the ceiling on Carson Palmer. Let me draft an unknown and try to catch lightning in a bottle.
I would probably be more willing to take the risk on another kind of semi-unknown player or a player that you're just not sure what they're going to do and be fine with that. Palmer, you kind of know his upside, and he's got some downside risk. He's more of a break in case of fire. Break the glass.
Break glass in case.
Yeah, you got to kind of pull them out if you have to.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't say it very well.
No, we're of one mind here. My Carrington Dynasty quarterback finished as the number 18 quarterback last year, but as far as fantasy points per game, he was actually number 6, and that's Big Ben Roethlisberger. It doesn't sound, based upon what the Steelers GM was saying yesterday, that he thinks Roethlisberger is going to retire. There just does not seem to be any sort of serious take on that.
What is he getting? $22 million a year.
He's
not going to retire.
He would have to give back, I believe, $18 million too.
He's not retiring. There's no chance.
Okay, so he's not retiring. So you look at the Steelers' offense this upcoming year. We already talked about how Jesse James is probably the tight end in Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown's going to be there. Martavis Bryant is coming back off suspension. Probably. You're right. They should add another playmaker in the draft, because clearly they did not get what they were looking for from Marcus Wheaton, Sammy Coates. Eli Rogers was pretty inconsistent last year as well. So you look at Big Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell behind him, lot to like there, Dave, and a guy that I don't believe will be drafted among the top 5 quarterbacks. He could be, but he's the type of guy that could finish there, and he is probably above, as you brought up, that glut of quarterbacks that's in there. He's probably above that tier. Is he worth taking a risk on drafting him before all those other sort of third-tier guys go off the board? Is he worth taking ahead of those guys, or would you still rather wait on all those other quarterbacks there?
Who are we talking about again? That question was so...
I'm trying to frame it for you.
How long is this show?
First of all, you're writing a GD email while I'm asking you the question. I want to make sure you understand what's going on.
I thought you were going on to some other stuff.
No, it's Roethlisberger.
It's still Roethlisberger?
Yes.
Does he still have the love sacks at his house?
I don't know.
I would take Roethlisberger, sure.
Over all those other guys, he's worth taking.
Yeah, not too much higher, but I would be...
I don't think he will go too much higher.
I'd be pretty happy taking Big Ben in the upper echelon of the middle range, whatever that means.
Super Bowl MVP Tom Brady finished as the number 21 quarterback. However, on a points per game basis, he finished in the top 5 at number 5. Another big year for Brady. As you nod your head, what's great about Brady? He played his best football last year when Gronk was hurt. It's my understanding Rob Gronkowski will be coming back to this team in 2017. So he's going to have Gronk. He's going to have Edelman. We saw all the plays that Malcolm Mitchell and Chris Hogan were able to make. And he has some guy named James White catching 14 passes out of the backfield a game as well. So you look at all those guys there. Brady's loaded. They will have the first place schedule. But the division they play in is not that great. Brady's the type of guy that's going to be drafted among the Breeze, Rodgers, Ryan tier.
Well, I mean, the way that they run their offense, the receivers look at the way the defense is laid out. They audible their routes. Brady knows that they're audibling their routes to whatever is the best route. He knows exactly where to throw it. He's thrown like 50,000 passes in this offense. He knows exactly where to throw it. If it's an 8-yard curl or a 20-yard post, whatever, he knows exactly where it should go. I mean, it's like playing a video game. Like it's like when you're playing NFL 2K and you always throw to the tight end because you can't, get that tight end. He's always going to catch a pass. Yeah. That's what it's like having Brady as a quarterback for fantasy. It's so great. He doesn't run it very often. That's fine. But he's almost always throwing for 300 yards. The only time he doesn't do well is when he's getting crunched, when the defense is rushing and they're actually getting in there. And so as long as the offensive line is healthy and good, he cannot be stopped. He really cannot be stopped.
And what's great about Brady, too, that you just kind of touched upon, I was reading an article on ESPN sometime last offseason, I think it was, and they were talking to an anonymous scout. And this anonymous scout, they were talking about quarterbacks, and they said, the quarterbacks in the NFL do not play this air raid system, bomb it downfield all the time. Everything, if you want to be successful, you got to be successful in that first 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's all Tom Brady does, is he operates there like a surgeon, and that's why he's so successful. And that's why people can't get to him when they're trying to put pressure on him, because by the time they get there, ball's already downfield. Yep. Julian Edelman's running 80 yards for a touchdown.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It's so. If you have Brady on your team, if you haven't known Brady, he's so much fun to have because you just watch it. He's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns.
It's the first quarter.
3 minutes left in it's just like so awesome to watch.
Let's tie it up. Rank the 2016 rookies for 2017 in the order you would draft them: Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Paxton Lynch. Do you like them in that order?
Wentz,
Goff, Lynch.
I'll obviously Wentz number 1. I don't know. I guess I'll go Lynch 2. Goff sucks. He'll go 3.
Okay, wow. So the unproven Paxton Lynch ahead of Jared Goff.
I say Goff's terrible. I don't like him at all.
Goff is an underrated guy. I mean, he's working with some quarterback gurus this offseason. We'll see what happens. He's working with Tom House and another guy. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, well, I hope he puts on like 10, 15, 20, 40 pounds.
Yeah, 40 probably would be preferable.
Get over 190.
If I could lose 40 pounds and give it to Jared Goff, I would draft him.
Me too. I'd be happy with that.
All right, that's going to do it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Chris Puchowicz for coming on tonight, Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob, and, of course, Bryce, our audio engineer, and you for all tuning in. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us as we kick off 2017 draft season with the FFPC. As we mentioned at the top of the show, no Dave Gerzak next week. We will have a co-host with me as well, so 10/9 Central, tune in. I will be here with a guest co-host. Pick up a Dynasty Orphan. Pick up some satellites. There's plenty of them at myffpc.com. Scott Engel and the Fantasy Hall of Fame Hour is up next on Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I gotta go, cause I got me a drop top, and if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight, and everything is...
And just to recap, the most important thing from the show tonight, invest in Skechers. That's SKX.